Jay Steger, Cold Country Wines. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the 7 biggest mistakes that home winemakers make. And believe me, I've learned these by experience. And this is something I want to do for our customers because as you all know, a lot of you are home winemakers and ask me all these questions about winemaking. And so I'm doing a YouTube that I can refer you to and give you some pointers all at once. A lot of times we're so busy in here, I don't have time to talk. Now I have time to talk. It's January 1st, 2021, and this is our slowest time of year, so I do have time to make YouTubes. Now, I'm gonna start out right away because I wanna get right into it. I'm not even gonna pussyfoot around with this. The biggest problem with amateur winemakers, and the funny thing is, a lot of you don't even know it, is oxygen. So many of our friends come in here with their wines they've made at home, and I taste it, and it's just totally oxygenated. And for some reason, certain winemakers can't even taste this. And this actually happens at some wineries as well. You go in there and you taste it, and it's all oxygenated. It's like, you can't taste this? You're selling this? But to make a long story short, oxygen is the #1 thing you're always guarding against when you're in the winemaking process. Of course, the #1 thing is cleanliness. You're always trying to keep everything clean and sterile. But the thing you're working with when you're in the process of making wine is oxygen. You're always trying to control oxygen. I've had professional winemakers tell me that you cannot make wine in a carboy because it's too small and it just doesn't work. And that is, they're talking about oxygen. They're talking about a wine bottle, a carboy like this. Here it is. It's got that much wine in it. Most of you guys know that this wouldn't keep. However, here it does. And what we do is, it's a very simple little trick. You just, for what you guys did, this is what I did before we started a winery, is I had a little bottle of CO2, and I just put a little CO2 in there, and you got to do it about twice a week. Put a little CO2 in there, and this will keep forever. If there's no oxygen in there, this wine will keep just like as if it was in a corked bottle. That's the #1 problem people have as amateur winemakers, is oxygen. Now, if you don't have CO2 and you're just trying to get it made, this is what you want in your carboys. You don't want it up here. You want it fermented about right here. The level's going to be right here when you ferment it, but when you're done, no matter what you have to do, somehow, if you're going to store this for more than a week, you want this way up in the neck. You actually would like it even 3/4 of an inch higher than what this is, because the lower it is, the more oxygen you're going to get in the wine. Because this cork is not preventing oxygen from getting in. This cork is just preventing bacteria and yeast from getting in, but there's still oxygen in there. So that's my biggest #1 problem, and the reason I brought that up first is because so many of my friends ask me for opinions on their wine, and I just can't get past the oxygen. Why does my wine have a slight vinegar smell? This is the cleanliness factor that I had talked about before. In the fall, this is the biggest way, or the most likely way it happens, is you have fruit flies. And if you don't keep everything pristinely clean on the outside, you got little drips of wine or drips of grape juice on the side, you get fruit flies that are flying around there, and they're touching everything and putting their little feet on everything. And they have this bacteria on their feet that's known as Acetobacter, which produces vinegar, which smells like vinegar and tastes horrible unless you like your wine to taste like pickles. So that is the #2 problem, is bacteria, and Acetobacter is the one that smells like vinegar. We'll get into some other stuff in some of our follow-up videos, because there are many, many bacterias and yeasts that can affect you in winemaking. And once you get into a winery, that's where you really see it, because then you got so much of it that if you got any bacteria anywhere, you're going to find it eventually, and it ain't going to be fun. Okay, the 3rd one is stray yeast. And there's good stray yeast and there's bad stray yeast. A lot of people try to do natural ferments. Natural ferments actually are great. I know professional winemakers that use natural fermentation as their #1 method of fermenting wine, and some of them have fabulous wines. However, there are some stray yeasts out there that if you get enough of it, especially after you've done your primary fermentation, if you got just a little bit of sugar left in the wine, you can get some of these other yeasts. They're spoilage yeasts, basically. One of them is our Brettanomyces. It's a well-known stray yeast among winemakers. Brettanomyces gives you this musty horse blanket smell. And if you walk by a tank that's got even some Brettanomyces on the seal right next to, right on the outside of it, because a little wine is leaked up, and then the Brettanomyces yeast will attack that little bit of wine on the seal. You walk by that tank, you can smell it from 5 or 6 feet away. It's like, oh my gosh, something's wrong. You go up there, and sure enough, there's little yellowish, whitish crust of this stuff growing on your seal, and you got to get rid of that right away. So what we do here at Cold Country is we take grain alcohol and we just spray it along the seals. It works good. You just do that once or twice a month, and that keeps the stray yeast from attacking that seal. Now, the other thing, of course, you say is, well, you want to keep it clean. Well, you can keep this really clean, but once you get into bigger tanks where you have variable capacity seals, it's not so easy to keep them clean. It's first off, the bigger tanks you can't even reach the seal, and then a lot of times you can't get in that deep, and there'll just be a tiny little crack of wine that just sneaks its way past the seal and just sits there, and it'll dry out. But of course, that's where you get the problem is the bacteria or the stray yeast attack that wine right on a little edge, and then you open the lid, and all that stuff just falls right into your good wine, and then you're done. It's pretty much over. The another question that I had is, Jay, why does my wine always seem like it has too much alcohol? This is a great question. This is something that when you're an amateur winemaker, and I was for many, many years myself, it's a way to keep wine from spoiling, from re-fermenting. You just let the alcohol come up as high as it wants to come up, and then you bottle. And it's not going to ferment in the bottle anymore because the alcohol, the yeast can't live in that much alcohol. So the only way you can get around that, because in a lot of yeasts, that's 17% alcohol, and that's basically a port-style wine. The way around that is to sterile filter the wine before you bottle it. Now, that's a lot easier said than done because sterile filtering, sometimes you get it sterile and sometimes you don't. And if you don't get it sterile, you got sugar in there and you're only at 12%, you bottle it and your corks are going to start popping off because you have a re-fermentation. Which leads me to another question that was in here, is, Jay, why are my corks popping off? That's because what happened is you didn't have it completely sterile when you put it in there, and your alcohol level wasn't up to 17%. So once it was in the bottle, it started fermenting again, and then when it ferments, you get that carbon dioxide pressure and pops the cork out. No matter what kind of cork you put on, it will pop it out because the pressure will just keep going up. It's got to go somewhere. All right, there is one more. Aging the wrong wines. Oh, yeah, this is a great question. Jay, I made this white wine. How long should I let it age before I drink it? That is a fabulous question because it points out a problem that so many beginning wine drinkers ask about, and that is, how long should a white wine be aged? A white wine that has fruit flavors, fruit-forward flavors, you don't age it at all. You drink it right away. I mean, it's good. It'll last 5 years, but from day one, those flavors start tapering off. So in 5 years, it's not going to taste half as good as it did when you first bottled it. That is fruity white wines. And realistically, as long as it's a fruity red wine, it's the same concept. You don't want to age a fruity, non-tannic red wine. Now, with that being said, red wines that have a lot of tannin, them are the ones you age because that's the point of aging is to make those tannins mellow out so that you get this real smooth across the palate experience once that wine comes of age, which can be anywhere from 1 year to 8 years if you're drinking Barolos from Italy. Some of the Barolos from Italy, they truly don't, they're not considered drinkable till 6 to 8 years of aging, which if you tasted Barolos, it might be worth it. They're pretty good. So what I'd like you to do is write me more questions, because I love answering these questions, and I'm going to put more videos out for amateur winemaking, and let me know what you want to hear, because I'm going to keep on doing this, and stop in at the winery and I'll talk to you. This time of year I can talk to you, spend a little bit of time with you. You come in the summer, maybe not so much. I'm pretty busy in the summer, especially with the vineyard. I don't know if you can see the vineyard right behind us, but the vineyard is pretty self-sufficient this time of year. From the middle of February till the end of October, the vineyard takes a lot of work. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and let us know in the comments what you think and what questions you have, and even what videos you'd like to see in the future. Jay Stager, I'll see you next time.